Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, December 7th, 2020. And if you're anything like me, your anxiety is at a 12 on a scale from 1 to 10. I have finally today figured out how to stream both from YouTube and to Facebook, which is really exciting because it's just nice to be able to post something on my wall and have people just be able to just click just be here. And I'm glad you're here. As you know, this is only the second night that I've done this. I feel I should explain exactly what exactly atheist Advent is about. It's just a cheeky title, really. I mean, I'm not going to evangelize about atheism or whatever, but this is a way for me to sort of share a tradition that I had growing up that I haven't really ever taken part of in the last 22 years. Just a way to wind down for the evening and just enjoy good books being read to, and for me, reading, because I really enjoy reading to others. I enjoy being read to, but I enjoy reading to others, and so this is a little bit indulgent for me because I got to do that. We're in a position right now in an ever-changing world where we're not really able to be with one another in the way that we would choose to be. And so here I am, and we just get to enjoy a little bit of good literature. So for those of you who perhaps weren't able to tune in last night, this will be going on until the 24th. Previously, earlier in toward late April, early May, I was doing a lot of live music streaming, and I will get back into that. But for now, it's just really nice to be able to read to you and to be with you, and just enjoy a bit of fun. So this week, I am reading from Erma Bombeck's Family, the Ties That Bind and Gag, which is Erma. How do I put this? It's funny because now I don't really like to read comments on anything, really, YouTube comments especially, but I was looking over some of the reviews of this book on Goodreads.com, which I don't know. I mean, just people. I don't know. People have things to say. What drives me crazy about some of the reviews I've read on Erma Bombeck's book is, her whole collection is, oh, it's a bunch of tired stereotypes and blah 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, because she's the OG when it comes to writing from a domestic standpoint. Arguably, Shirley Jackson, who is more known for being a horror author because she wrote The Lottery and she wrote The Haunting and all of that. She also wrote Life Among the Savages is what she wrote. That was in 1954, I think. It could be wrong, but Erma sort of picked that up and kept on going with it. So anyway, I won't go on forever. I'm going to go ahead and start. So what I would like you to do is just sit back and just enjoy, which is what I'm going to do. I have all of my many pillows around me. And we will begin. So we will begin Advent for Monday, December 7th. Now, this is a continuance of yesterday's reading. So what I will do is I will start with the previous lines that I read last night, because there is a bit of a follow into the next chapter. So I'm reading from the previous chapter. As I filled a glass of water at the sink and popped an aspirin in my mouth, Mom said, "Don't you feel good?" "Just a little headache," I said. "Nonsense. You probably need a laxative." Scientific breakthroughs have come and gone in this country and been ignored totally by my mother. No one will ever convince her that the responsibility for good health does not lie within the minds of each and every one of us. From birth, my mother's cure-all for every malady I ever suffered was the same. You need a laxative. I went through grade school wondering why children went around with their legs and arms in a cast when all they had to do to get well was to take a candy-flavored cleansing agent before they went to bed. It was uncanny how she could just look at you and determine you were ready for a clean start in life. A laxative cured an upset stomach, headache, fever, stomach rashes, dizziness, and general rundown feeling. By the time she finished with you, nothing seemed important enough to open your mouth and complain about. Around the age of 12, she varied her diagnosis to include, "You're just bored." All my friends had impacted teeth, blood disorders, viral attacks, appendicitis, dog bites, and pneumonia. I had all those things, but I was just bored, and the cure was, get yourself something to do or I'll find something. After I was married, she offered still another second opinion. It's just your nerves. Mom, I fainted twice today. It's just your nerves. I think I'm pregnant. Nonsense, it's just your nerves. She stuck to her story even after I gave birth to an 8-pound, 4-ounce bundle of nerves. No one in this family has ever taken my illnesses seriously. Just once, I'd like to get a virus that everyone else in town doesn't have. I seem to be the last adult female in North America to get it. I don't ask for Mother Teresa, but I deserve a little compassion, especially for my husband. I don't feel well, I said to him one morning. I feel like my chest has been wound up too tight. Pain is tap dancing across my eyes. I save up my coughs for when I'm feeling adventurous. Nonsense, said my husband. You're just bored. Everyone in the office has what you have. There's a lot of it going around, and the diagnosis is they probably just need a career change. You could be right, I said. I don't want to be married anymore. Sometimes, he continued, it's just an attitude where you tell yourself you're sick, when in reality you are generally discontented with yourself. I've seen a million cases of this at work. You didn't say that when you went to bed for 3 days after you had your teeth cleaned. That's different, he said. I had complications. A popcorn hull embedded in a molar. I think my trouble is I cannot communicate what I feel to my doctor. As for him, I have yet to understand one word of what he was saying. He speaks Latin. I speak Reader's Digest. Most people are like that. Ever since I told a crowd in a doctor's waiting room that I had a Bavarian cyst and 2 others had the same thing, I've been convinced we do not speak the same language. I suspect I am intimidated by anyone who wears white all winter and washes his hands 137 times a day. God, I'm insecure. You say you have this problem in a humorous bone, as in Woody Allen? Not that humorous. Would you spell that, please? Of course, he says. Give me a piece of scrap paper and I'll make a diagram and label it for you. Here, just tear off a part of the gown you gave me. There's nothing more humiliating in the world than to try to explain to your husband what the doctor said. It has something to do with my nose, I say. What part of you knows? Well, you know, the wrecked triceptum, he says. What's wrong with it? It's perverted. Deviated. Same thing. I've talked with people who told me that they had a catheter inserted in them for a week, not to be confused with Willa. Another friend I know could never remember his blood pressure numbers, but said if his diabolic reading was under his golf score, he was happy. When my grandmother once announced that she had a prostate deficiency and was told it wasn't possible, she snapped, "The way I eat, anything is possible." As one of the kids joined Mother and me at the table, I sneezed and blew my nose. "Are you coming down with something?" I said. "Excuse me. Are you coming down with something?" he asked. "She's just bored," said my mother. "Here, why don't you take a shot of this cough syrup?" "I'm not well enough to take that," I said. "What do you mean you're not well enough?" she said. "Read!" In bold letters, the label warned if you exceeded the recommended dosage, you could suffer from nervousness, dizziness, and sleeplessness. You could not take the medication at all if you suffered from high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, or thyroid disease, or were presently taking a prescription antihypertensive or antidepressive drug containing a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, otherwise known as an MOI. It was not to be taken if you had glaucoma, asthma, or difficulty in urination due to enlargement of the prostate gland. "You could chance it," said my son. "And if you get a reaction, contact the Poison Control Center as soon as possible." "Here's one you could possibly take," said Mother, grabbing another bottle. "Let's see. Are you pregnant or a nursing mother?" I groaned. "Just checking." "Do you have an ulcer? Are you allergic to aspirin, or do you have a bleeding disorder?" "What's a bleeding disorder?" "You'd blame me," she said, tossing it back. "How about this one?" asked my son. "The side effects are dryness of mouth, drowsiness, temporary blurred vision, dilation of the pupils, disorientation, memory disturbances, dizziness, restlessness, hallucinations, confusion, skin irritation, dry, itchy, red eyes, and you can't operate any dangerous machinery." "Unless that includes the stove, forget it," I said. "Put these on the top shelf," I said. "Why?" asked my son. "There are no children here. These should be kept out of the reach of sick people." "I hope you're not going to ruin the holidays for everyone," said my mother. "Grandma, you sound just like Mom when we were little. Every time someone asked Mom what we were getting for Christmas, she said, 'I really don't know, either a chest cold, stomach flu, or walking diarrhea.' They always come up with something, even if it is at the last minute." It was true. I don't know if it was the anticipation and excitement of the season or the wear and tear of the end of the year, but the kids fell apart on schedule every holiday. We always used to hear stories of Christmas, about how people went to parties or watched the big tree at the courthouse being lit up. Once, when I was at the drugstore having prescriptions fulfilled, I even saw a group of people singing. I didn't know what it was all about, so I asked the druggist. He said, "They're called carolers, and they go out and sing in front of homes, and sometimes they're invited in for punch and cookies." "But how do they get their medication?" I asked. "They're not sick," he said. "Not sick?" That was the first time I realized that not everyone got sick at Christmas. Made me curious about how other people spent the holidays. All I know is, in our neighborhood of cookie-cutter houses in the suburbs, flushed faces and fevers were a way of life. We'd fix a buffet of antibiotics, clear broth, 7-Up, and Jell-O. Hoist a glass of kaopectate and propose our traditional toast to menopause. As Grandma made her exit, I collared my son and said, "About the snake." "Mom," he said, "there is no need to hyperventilate. It is just for a couple of days. Besides, I thought mothers were supposed to be there for their children." "You show me a boy who brings a snake home to his mother, and I'll show you an orphan." His siblings warned us. She was the same way when we wanted to bring Harry into the house, remember? "Don't feed him at the table. Go wash your hands. Don't kiss that dog. You don't know where it's been." "Now he follows you around all day," said my son. "You'd be lost without him," said my daughter, wistfully. "Sometimes I think you love that dog more than you love us. Admit it." "Admit what?" "Harry is a bundle of bad breath who should be owned by an attorney. He never passes a thigh without sinking his teeth into it. He bites the hand that feeds him. Mine!" And there were promises made the day he came into this house that were never kept. He would never be fed from the table. True, he had his own chair alongside the rest of the family. He would sleep in his own bed, provided it was a waterbed filled with Perrier. Whenever he piddled or dropped a bomb in the house, it would be cleaned up by the first person who saw it. Astigmatisms flourished. He would be trained by the children to do his business outside. He has lived with paper so long, we bought him a subscription to the New York Times. Today, he is 8 years old. And if you can visualize a 56-year-old man in a shaggy fur coat who watches television for 6 hours each evening and never leaves the room for commercial, you got it. Harry knows nothing about nature. He's never seen a tree, a blade of grass, a curb or pillar, or a car tire. He has no curiosity as to why the velvet on the chair is so hard for him to relieve himself on, or why they would make a plush carpet so difficult to balance yourself on 3 legs. Heaven knows I tried. I praised him when he went where he was supposed to, and I punished him when he missed the paper. It always worked for the kids. When the house became carpeted with wall-to-wall urine and our guests had to keep moving lest they be mistaken for a wall, we installed a doggy door. The doggy door is an 8.5 by 12.5 inch. The doggy door is an 8.5 by 12.5 inch opening cut into a $400 door. To the dog, it is like jumping the Snake River, blindfolded, on a tractor mower. The training proved to be rather simple. Within an hour, I'd figured out that if you pushed the plastic insert with your nose hard enough, it opened up to the outside. And it was just a matter of trying to jump for a little impetus, balancing your paws on the sill, and pushing yourself through. It took Harry a little longer to comprehend. "Do not look upon it as the Berlin Wall," I said one day as I rubbed my raw shoulder. "It's a two-way street. You can go out and you can come back in whenever you please." One of the kids came in one day full of excitement. "Mom, Harry is standing at the door trying to get out." Unfortunately, it was not the door that we put a hole in. One day I was in the kitchen when I heard a dog authority on a talk show. The host was asking him what to do when a dog wet on the same chair all the time. I dropped the dish towel and ran in just in time to hear the dog authority smile and say, "Throw away the chair." When a dog allows you to become his best friend, you owe him big. Food is his primary source of pleasure. My husband came into the kitchen one night, dipped his spoon into a bowl, and said, "Tastes terrific. What is it?" I said, "Chicken, bacon bits, onions, and kidneys." "What do you call it?" "I call it the dog's dinner. We're having beans and franks. Go wash up." Do I want to know what's in this bottle filled with brown liquid? It's a new beverage for dogs who are sick of drinking just water. It's flavored with beef. "That's quite a jump for someone who drinks from a toilet," he said. "Besides, how do you know when a dog is sick of drinking just water? Does he say yuck and spit it out?" My husband had a point. We've never had a dog who sang, talked, wrote notes, or communicated with us in any way. "We just have to trust someone," I said. And trust we have. During the last few years, I've seen the selection of dog food grow from the couple of bags of nuggets by the grass seed near the door to an entire aisle of options. On blind faith, I've lugged in cheese and beef pellets, dry food that turns sensuous in its own gravy, jerky snacks, liver-flavored cookies, bones that whiten dogs' teeth, and cans of gourmet dog food to combat boredom. "Let me ask you a question," said my husband. "Has this dog ever gotten excited about any dog products touted on TV?" "You know the only time he reacts to anything on TV is when he goes to bed during PBS Pledge Week. He doesn't care, said my husband. For all we know, he's probably a vegetarian, doesn't know how to tell us. We could throw him a raw potato every day and he'd be happy as a clam. He tilted the bottle of beef-flavored drink, took a sip, and winced. What did you expect, Gusto? He looked at the dog and whispered, stick to the toilet. Despite all the demands pets put on you, in the pecking order of a family, they are right near the top. I have to admit, I have had a better rapport with Harry than any other member of my family. There's a reason for this. You can call a dog, and when he comes running to your side, you can say, I don't want anything. I just wanted to know where you are. Try this with a kid, and he'll break your knees. A dog will sit with you through the worst television show in the history of video, and if you like it, never once will he try to change a channel and get something better. He never entertains friends, forcing you to retire to your bedroom like a felon serving time. He never lies to you, and never gets upset if you don't remember his birthday. Any relationship is strengthened by a friend who can keep a secret. You can tell a dog you don't know what you'll do if you can't come up with the interest on your charge card before the 15th, and he will keep it to himself. There was a story of a man in Wisconsin who said his wife and dog did not get along. One of them had to go. So he put an ad in the paper that read, Wife or dog must go. Wife is good-looking blonde but impatient. Dog is German short hair, 2.5 years old, spayed female. Your choice, free. He received more than 20 calls from people interested in the dog. One caller said he had a short brunette and English setter and wanted to know if they could trade. My husband loved that story. He said it made sense. After all, a dog could give him all the tender loving care his wife could. He could fetch the slippers and newspapers, never hang on the phone all day long, or leave dirty dishes soaking in the sink, and would keep his feet warm at night. I said, if you feel that way, how come you didn't marry a dog? My husband is too smart, too old, and too well fed to even think of touching that line. From the kitchen, the voice was barely audible. It's coming from the living room, said one son. We all froze like a tableau. Well, excuse me. I didn't realize there was someone still in this room. Silly me. I was ready to turn on the lights out. Here, let me turn on a few more lights, the voice continued. I can afford it. I'm independently wealthy, you know. I smiled knowingly. It's your father. The Prince of Darkness, making a point, I said. Don't tell me, said my son. Let me guess. Dad is standing in an empty living room talking to himself to let us know we didn't turn the lights off again when we left the room. The other son shook his head. Some things never change. The speech was a staple. For 30 years, Dad had dedicated his life to flipping off lights in rooms with no one in them, turning off water spigots in the bathroom, and throwing his body over the meter in an effort to stop the dials from spinning. His sermons on saving money and energy fell on deaf ears. His commandments on misuse lay like broken stone tablets amidst the wet towels and melting soap. For more than 30 years, he valiantly fought apathy, alone and unheeded. His gospel of utilities never got the respect he had hoped for. Thou shalt flush, especially if thou art 15 years old and has the use of both arms. Thou shalt hang up the phone when thou hast been on it long enough for the rates to change. Thou shalt not stand in front of the refrigerator door, waiting for something to dance. Thou shalt not covet the rest of the family's hot water. Thou shalt honor thy father's and mother's thermostat and keep it on normal. Thou shalt remember last month's electricity bill and rejoice in darkness. There were other commandments, but these were the ones that were written in stone. He began teaching them when children were old enough to respond to the word no. The phone company didn't make it easy. In the ads, they made it look like such a pleasurable experience to talk on the phone. Grandma and Granddad were both poised over the receiver, listening to their grandchild burp. Or an entire band jammed into a phone booth to call the tuba player who had to stay at home with his lip in a cast. Sometimes they showed you college friends calling coast to coast with tears in their eyes to describe a western sunset. Maybe it used to be that way. But that was before Grandma and Granddad realized the burp cost them $9.12. It was before the band cashed in their airline tickets to make the call. Before friends realized it was cheaper to take a bus to see the sunset than to talk about it. Our phone bill prompted my husband to put together the first in a set of rules for placing long-distance calls in the future. Before placing the call, go to the bathroom. Blow your nose, and get a drink of water. Read the weather report of the town you are calling to. Eliminate, what's the weather like? Figure out the time zone to conserve conservation on what time is it there. Don't play games like Guess Who This Is. Fight with your brother before dialing. Laughter costs dollars. Save it until you're off the phone. Don't repeat. If someone says, I love you, there is no need to say, I love you too. A simple ditto will suffice. Animals and babies are a waste of time on the phone. They never bark, laugh, talk, sing anyway until they hear the party hang up. So, write letters. If you really wanted to see old Dad lose it, you should have seen him walk into the kitchen and discover 3 kids with both doors of the refrigerator flung open while the hairs in their noses froze up. He had a rule for that too. He came up with an idea he used in our safe deposit box. Every time he'd take out a document for our taxes, he would record it on a little sheet of paper. When he returned an insurance policy or our passports, he would write it down. In one glance, he knew what was in and what was out in the safe deposit box. He figured it should work with the refrigerator, so he posted the contents on the refrigerator door and asked the family to mark any withdrawals or additions on the sheet. A cabbage roll had 7 ins and outs, signifying no one knew what it was until he bit into it. Some smartass withdrew 35 cherries and 2 peaches and returned 35 cherry seeds and 2 pitch for inventory. A box of baking soda was withdrawn and returned with a note that said, needs work. Probably the most pathetic entry listed under withdrawals was ice cubes with a note that said, would have returned same, but didn't know how to make them. He tried so hard. I used to watch him as he lined the children in front of the door and said, today we are going to learn how to speak thermostat. When your room is cold, what do you do? One of the boys came forward and hiked the thermostat up to 80. Okay, you have the idea, but you need a little fine-tuning, said his father. Now, when your room gets too hot, as it will, what do you do? Open a window, yawned our daughter. They listened intently to his "Daddy is not a rich man" speech and dutifully followed him to the meter so that they could watch the little dials twirl around. He told them how much we were charged for each little twirl. I used to feel sorry for him as I watched from a distance, his lips forming the word bankruptcy. Finally, one day, one of them said, wait a minute. Are you telling us that the colder it gets outside, the harder the furnace has to work to keep it warm inside? And that every time it clicks on, it costs money? My husband nodded excitingly. Then you should have thought of that before you had children, he said. At times, our home has been mistaken for a nuclear power plant, a site of a premiere of a major motion picture, a night baseball game, or a Mardi Gras in progress. Despite his lectures on how a light switch works, we still have the only lighthouse offering a perpetual beacon for sailors adrift in the Arizona desert. I remember the night we arrived home to find 32 lights burning. My husband rousted the family out of bed and ordered them to the dining room, where he shuffled through a stack of papers and figures. "Did you know," he asked, "that it costs each of us $135 a year to take a hot bath, and that the washer costs $3.50 a year to operate?" "Are you suggesting that we all bathe together in the soak cycle of the washer?" yawned one of the kids. "I am suggesting that we all take a good look at what is going on around here. A shower is a lot cheaper and uses less water." They thanked him for sharing and got up to leave. "Sit!" he ordered. "A waterbed costs $4.35 a year to heat, while an electric blanket costs only $2.20. "Great!" said our son. "Why don't we all stand under a hairdryer to keep warm? That only costs $1.75 a year." "For a nickel more," said another son, "we could use the vacuum sweeper to suck the dirt off." My husband stomped off in defeat. "Your father has a point," I told the kids. "After all, he pays the bills, and all he gets back for it is waste. From here on in, we stop and think about how much it costs in electricity before we turn on a single appliance." When my husband came to breakfast, he said, "Where's the coffee?" "I made it in the popcorn popper," said our daughter. "It only costs 40 cents to run, while the electric coffee maker costs $5.40. One son didn't shave because it costs 40 cents a year. The other one was late for work because the clock, $1.03, was unplugged, and a strange smell was coming from the freezer because it cost $109.45 a year to keep it plugged in. I offered him a piece of solar toast from the windowsill, but he kept walking toward the door. It was rather predictable that he would wind up talking to himself. So, here we are. We have come to an end of a second day of Advent for us to be here together tonight. Tomorrow is a holiday, a private holiday within this sphere. My grandmother, who found this moonstone that I am wearing around my neck, is turning 96 tomorrow. So tomorrow will be a brief departure from Erma Bombeck. I'll be reading something differently, and then I will carry on Wednesday with something else. Well, not something else. I will carry on with the rest of this book. But thank you so much for being here. I'm really kind of crap at winding down for the evening. My way of winding down is taking a fistful of diphenhydramine and waiting for sleep to overtake me. So this has been a really fun way to sort of observe the Advent tradition that I grew up with, and I thank you so much for being here, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow.